Hare Krishna, very dear devotees, welcome back once again to our ongoing series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So today I was reflecting again how in the spiritual dimension of Vrindavan, every person and every object, such as an animal, tree, musical instrument, a ring or a necklace, is actually a transcendental personality, a unique and, how could you say, colorful individual. In the spiritual world, there are no bodies made of gross matter like flesh and bones or even mind, intellect or ego. Everyone has a bhava deha. A bhava deha means a spiritual body full of transcendental loving sentiments. Everyone and everything in Goloka Vrindavan is completely personal, full of love for Radha and Krishna. And in this regard, everyone also has a personal and unique relationship with Krishna. Not that some entities have a close relationship with Krishna and others only get to be with him from time to time or only get to see him from a distance. No, everyone has a personal and unique relationship with Krishna. This concept is called Prakasha Vigraha. Prakasha Vigraha. In Brihad Bhagavatamritam 3.6-11, we learn Balakas Taruna Vridha Gopaste Kotiko Tisha Sarve Vidhur Mahaprayan Aham Krishnasya Netraha. Every one of the millions and millions of cowherds, the children, young people and elders, thinks, I alone am most dear to Krishna. I alone am most dear to Krishna. Prakasha Vigraha also means one Krishna per gopi in the rasa dance, and one Krishna per cowherd boy during lunch. We've all heard in Krishna book how during lunch, each cowherd boy feels that Krishna is looking directly towards him. And as for the many living entities living in the Vrindavan forest, there's so many living entities, pure devotees, living in Vrindavan forest, they also enjoy a very personal and unique relationship with Krishna. Krishna book, chapter 15, describes that once when Krishna and Balaram were walking through the forest, Krishna said to Balaram, my dear brother, you are the supreme worshipable Godhead. Just see how the peacocks are dancing before you in great ecstasy. The deer, whose behavior is just like the gopis, are welcoming you with the same affection. And the cuckoos, who are residing in this forest, are receiving you with great joy because they consider that your appearance in their home is so auspicious. Even though they are trees and animals, these residents of Vrindavan are glorifying you. They are prepared to welcome you to their best capacity, as is the practice of great souls in receiving another great soul at home. As for the land, it is so pious and fortunate that the footprints of your lotus feet are marking its body. It is quite natural for these Vrindavan inhabitants to thus receive a great personality like you. The herbs, creepers, and plants are also fortunate to touch your lotus feet. And by your touching the twigs with your hands, these small plants are also made glorious. As for the hills and the rivers, they too are now glorious because you are glancing at them. Above all, the damsels of Braja, the gopis, are the most glorious because you embrace them with your strong arms, being attracted by their beauty. All glories to Krishna book. So now, therein, we hear that the Braja gopis are especially dear to the Lord. Sometimes it is that Krishna makes it clear that one devotee or group of devotees are very special to him. Again, Brihad Bhagavatamrita 2:16 says, Tatrapi yam prati prema vishesho shva padeshyate tatapati yate Krishna swai shaivani taram priya. That yet when Krishna shows special love for one of the gopis, it then becomes apparent that she is the most dear to him. But this special status of the gopis doesn't create any envy in the spiritual world. For there is no envy in the spiritual world. Prabhupada made it very clear. There's no envy in the spiritual world. When the devotees there see another devotee getting special attention from Krishna, they think, how nice it is that Krishna is pleased with that devotee's service. So today, we are continuing with our mini-series on Stimulation for Ecstatic Love, and this will be part 38. With part 37, we had concluded our lectures on Srimati Radharani's transcendental ornaments, 3 classes. But today I would like to discuss another subject related to her, and that is her braid, Radharani's braid. Our acharyas often refer to Sri Radha's braided hair as an exceptional part of her beauty, and thus for us an impetus for awakening our love for her. In the Radha Ashtatara Satanam, verse 23, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami writes, Divya Veni Vinir Dhuta Keki Pincha Vara Shtuti, meaning Sri Radha's splendid braids have stopped the praises of peacock feathers. Sri Radha's splendid braids have stopped the praises of peacock feathers, which are glorious in Vrindavan. But her braids have stopped the praises of the peacock feathers. Now, technically the word braid in Sanskrit is veni, as well as kapardham, jati, jata, juta, shatama, and kotiram, different names for braids. In Shastra I was reading, it is said that the beauty of a woman resides not in her bodily limbs, but in her long hair. It's also mentioned that the long hair of a woman signifies good fortune. Therefore in Vrindavan, all the Braja Gopis, along with the topmost gopi, Sri Radha, have long hair for the good fortune of Krishna. Now, the art of dressing braids can still be seen in South India, where ladies braid their hair with flowers and jewels. Those of you, or those of us who have been to South India, we see that quite often. But the braids of the Braja Gopis are especially wonderful, for they are part of the Gopis' pure spiritual forms. And of course, this is especially true of the braid of Radharani. In Govinda Lilamrita 11, verse 114, the braids of Sri Radha are compared to the holy Triveni confluence of Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati. Govinda Lilamrita says, the Yamuna river of Srimati Radharani's beautiful black hair is braided with the Saraswati river of a string of jewels, and the Ganges river of pearls and flowers. In this way, the decorated, braided hair of curving-eyebrowed Radharani has become just like the pilgrimage place, Triveni, where the Saraswati, Ganges, and Yamuna rivers converge. Triveni. All glories to Srimati Radharani. Srila Rupa Goswami also refers to the beauty of Sri Radha's braids in his Radha Krishna Gunadesha Dipika, verse 148. Therein he says, Sri Radha's body is full of loveliness, lavanya, and decorated with pearl necklaces. Her hair is long, and her wonderful braid is decorated by beautifully strung flower garlands. Now it's interesting, during my research, I came across the fact that Radharani's braids are often compared to serpents. In Bhakti Ratnakara, 5th wave, we hear Pani Jini Bheni Pite Dhole Gravara Bhan Gima To Kiba Rashera Hihole. Defeating the snakes, Sri Radha's braids sway to and fro. How many waves of nectar flow from the graceful motions of her neck? And in Shtavamala, in the part called Chatu Pushpanjali, Chatu Pushpanjali means literally a handful of prayer flowers. A handful of prayer flowers. Rupa Goswami refers to Sri Radha's braid in a similar way. He writes, O Queen of Vrindavan, Sri Radha, I worship you. Your fair complexion is more resplendent than molten gold. The color of your sari, the hue of a blue lotus flower. Your beautiful braided hair is long, raven black, and studded with many brilliant gems, like the shining black hood of a cobra. Like the shining black hood of a cobra. Now in this regard, there's an interesting pastime in relationship to this verse of Rupa Goswami. And I'll relate that here. So sweet. One day, 500 years ago, Srila Sanatana Goswami came to Radhakund to meet Sri Rupa and Raghunath Das Goswamis. And upon his arrival, they both got up to greet him, and after respectfully seating him, they immersed themselves all in discussion of the nectarian pastimes of Radha and Krishna. This is what great souls do. At that time, Sri Rupa Goswami was writing this Chatu Pushpanjali, and when Srila Sanatana Goswami sat down to read it, he came upon this same verse that we quoted, comparing Sri Radha's braid to a cobra. So at that time he wondered, is it proper to compare Sri Radha's braid to the hood of a poisonous snake? That thought came to his mind. But later that day he came down to the banks of Radhakund, and after offering prayers there, he began to take his bath. When suddenly, on the opposite side of the Kund, Radhakund, he noticed some cowherd girls playing under the shade of a large tree. And as he watched them from the distance, it appeared that a black snake, hanging from the tree, was about to wrap itself around the neck and shoulders of one of the cowherd girls. So sensing danger, he called out to her, "Oh, hey, Lali, look out, there's a snake just behind you." But the girls were absorbed in their play, and they didn't take notice of him. So he immediately took off running to save them from the impending danger. And seeing him approaching, the girl, the special girl, and her friends began to laugh. At that point, Sanatana Goswami realized that the girl was Sri Radha herself, and her friends were her gopi maidservants. And looking closer, he saw that there wasn't a black snake present, it was only the braid of Srimati Radharani. So at that point, Sri Radha and her girlfriends disappeared. So Sanatana Goswami was completely stunned, but he understood, the understanding came to him that Sri Rupa's comparison of Sri Radha's braid to the head of a cobra in Chatu Pushpanjali was in fact very appropriate. All glories to Srila Rupa Goswami. We often quote Srila Rupa Goswami, don't we? For he's our mentor in the science of rasa. It's said of him, Ratnakaradhyena su dhalpa kumbha avishkrita sotu mahan rameshra yastrata prayusha rishab dikarta Shri Rupa sti vinamashri devaha. The Supreme Lord, Shri Dhanvantari, the husband of Lakshmi, who extracted a small jar of nectar from the large ocean, is certainly great. But that personality who created an entire ocean of nectarian rasa, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in this world is certainly my most worshipable deity. Sri Rupa Goswami. And that verse was composed by Hari Prasad Das, my good friend. Now, I was reading, in ancient times, women would wash their hair with a mixture of medicinal herbs, as well as shika, amla, yogurt, milk, and almond oil. Then they would dry their hair with a silk cloth. Vedic culture. They'd dry their hair with a silk cloth, then smoke their hair with smoke from cow dung, or I was reading sometimes aguru wood. Then they would oil their hair with different oils, like almond oil, amla oil, jasmine oil, saffron oil, and even medicinal oils. Then they would tie their hair with cotton strings. But in Goloka Vrindavan, it's the Astasakis who attend to Sri Radha's hair. In Govinda Lilamrita, their decorating Sri Radha's braids is described in verses chapter 2, verse 72, and chapter 2, verse 73. There it's described. Lalita decorated Radharani's hair with bakula flowers, strings of pearls, and the splendid jewel that Krishna had taken from Shankachuta. She fixed Sri Radha's braids, tied them with a ribbon, and decorated them with golden jeweled ornaments and red flower blossoms. Chitra then dressed Srimati Radharani in a red garment, sewn with gold and rubies, and above that she placed the silk garment named Megambhara, which is as splendid as a swarm of bumblebees. Over this garment hung 2 tight braids of curling hair, tied with ribbons and decorated with gold and 2 red flowers. So many nectarian details. Just about Srimati Radharani's braids. How fortunate we are. So attending to Sri Radha's hair involves washing her hair, drying it, smoking it, massaging it, combing it, weaving it into braids, and decorating the braids. Now, of course, this is a very intimate seva, very intimate service. And as such, many great devotees have expressed their desire to render this seva to Srimati Radharani. For example, our great hero, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, he prays to get the service of braiding her hairs in Partana Svabhishta Lalasa. That's in their Song 13. He writes, Dunhu Rupa Manohari Dekhiba Nayana Bhari Nilam Bhari Rai Sa Jaya Navaratna Jari Ani Bandhiba Vachitra Bhaini Tate Pula Malat Gandhila. When will I gaze at the beautiful forms of the divine couple? When will I dress Srimati Radharani in blue garments and decorate her braided hair with garlands of jasmine flowers and strings of 9 different kinds of jewels on a golden thread? Srila Narottam Das Thakur ki. And in Sankalpa Kalpadruma, Srila, another one of our heroes, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he appeals to Srimati Radharani in verse 28. I will offer you beautiful outfits according to your taste. I will disentangle and comb your hair with a golden comb. I will decorate your hair with different types of colorful and fragrant flowers. And at the end of your braid, I will tie a handful of hanging gems and pearls known as chamarika. Hare Krishna. Now, this chamarika, I had to do more research, but this chamarika is a special type of ornament with strings on which hang pearls of different colors, as well as gems and fragrant flowers. I also read that some chamarikas are made to look like small palm-sized gold fans. Just imagine in your mind's eye. A small palm-sized gold fan, which Radharani uses to fan Krishna in the groves of Vrindavan forest. Now in that verse we quoted of Vishwanath Chakravarti, it also, or he mentions, a gold comb, a gold comb. Elsewhere it's written then, when arranging Sri Radha's hair, other types of combs are used as well. In particular, Vitala Vipul. In the Vrindavan Research Center, I came across this personality. Vitala Vipul, a famous medieval Brajbasi poet. He describes some of these combs in one of his poems, combs that are used to comb Srimati Radhika's hair. He mentions therein, in one of his poems, a comb made of jewels, a comb made of ivory, a comb of gold and silver combined, a comb of feathers, and a comb of precious stones. And all these combs are used to comb Sri Radha's hair. And just as great devotees hanker for the service of tending to Sri Radha's hair, so does the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So everything has, to say something in spiritual circles, one has to back it up with verses or the words of great devotees. So this is confirmed. The Krishna likes to also dress Radharani's hair. It's confirmed by the famous poet, for us a very special poet, Govinda Das Kaviraj, who wrote that song that devotees like to sing, Bhaja Hure Mana. He writes in one of his poems, Kabari Bhana Ola Bandala Kesha. Often when Radha and Krishna meet, after dressing in new garments, Radharani ties Krishna's hair and he weaves her braids. The poet has spoken, and he weaves her braids. And in Radharasa Sudhanidhi, verse 249, Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati, he prays as follows, O Radha, when will I see your braids, which Krishna has personally decorated with flowers, jewels, strings of fragrant jasmines, and at their end, a glistening cluster of rubies. Wow. I'm sure pujaris will take advantage of this lecture. If you can get a cluster of rubies, you can tie it to the end of Sri Radha's braid. Now, for some Leela, there's a nice pastime in this regard wherein Krishna combed, braided, and decorated Sri Radha's hair near Kusham Sarovara at the base of Govardhan Hill. Local residents, they narrate the story in a very charming way. One day in the month of Bhadra, when trees are especially rich with blossoms, Radharani and her friends came to the forest of Pushpavan, which is just next to Kusham Sarovara. Why? To collect flowers for a festival called Sanji. We elaborated on that festival a couple of years ago, Sanji. Of course, as always, their real purpose was they hoped to see Krishna there. And actually that day, Krishna was wandering alone in the forest, enjoying the natural beauty of Vrindavan, as he often does. And when he came upon these gopis collecting flowers, he decided to, how could I put it, tease Sri Radha. So he approached the gopis pretending to being the gardener of a king named Kamadev, pretending to be a gardener of the king named Kamadev. So Krishna said, why are you girls picking the king's flowers? But the gopis, they pretended not to notice him. So Krishna became a little upset and he said, you arrogant thieves, immediately identify yourselves, for you are destroying this forest. So that moment, Sri Radha, she snapped back, you who ruin all of Braja by herding your thousands of cows through its forest, and who run around with your destructive friends, dare to accuse us? So Krishna tried to defend himself. He said, Sri Radha, because we graze our cows under the king's sanction, I am faultless. You, however, are taking flowers without permission. Therefore, you should be punished. This was a lover's quarrel on the transcendental platform. So Radha said, you were faultless, Krishna? Throughout your childhood, you stole anything you could get your hands on, and now in youth, you killed a bull. Then she issued the following decree. She's the queen of Vrindavan. For falsely stating that this forest belongs to some imaginary king, for impersonating a constable of that king, and for the attempted imprisonment of innocent gopis, this boy must be punished. And with that, all the cowherd girls applauded, and they called out, tie him up, throw him in jail, tie him up, throw him in jail. But Srimati Radharani, the kind queen that she is, pronounced a different sentence. She said, this boy is hereby sentenced to the labor of dressing my ruffled hair. Wow, what a punishment. The labor of dressing my ruffled hair. So this punishment was very satisfying to the gopis, and Krishna also accepted it with a smile, it said. So Radha and Krishna and all the gopis entered a nearby pavilion with, it's described, flower archways, swaying vines, and jewel lamps. And then Radhika, she sat down before a golden table on which there were combs, brushes, and a bejeweled mirror. While Krishna quickly collected the best flowers he could find in Pushpaman to decorate Sri Radha's hair. And he soon returned to the pavilion carrying a basket overflowing with flowers. And it's so nicely described that parrots, cuckoos, and peacocks followed behind him, filling the air with their voices. I like that part. Parrots, cuckoos, and peacocks followed behind him, filling the air with their voices. Then Krishna said, Lalita, is there some water that I can use to purify these flowers? So she replied, Krishna, we have lots of nectarian juices here, but no water. So then Krishna, smiling, he took his flute, his vamsi from his belt, and said, okay, don't worry. I will summon water from every holy place in the creation. And then he hit the ground with his flute. And suddenly, a sacred lake appeared, an entire lake appeared. Shastra says, filled with glistening clear water, shimmering in ecstasy at the prospect of serving Sri Radha. And on each of those four shores, there were jewel-studded staircases and multicolored lotuses in the crystal clear waters of the lake. This lake was also full of jewelfish, and was surrounded by opulent gardens and blessed kadamba trees, which were home to singing birds and hanging flower vines. It is said that even if one were able to search all the heavenly planets, he could never find a lake that could match the beauty, opulence, and sweetness of that kund. And Prabhus, we all know that that amazing lake is Kusham Sarovara. We passed by it on our Govardhan Parikrama. Beautiful lake with a beautiful palace behind it. That lake was created by Krishna. So the Acharyas say that because that lake played and plays, because pastimes are eternal, such an intimate role in Krishna's service to Radharani, it's the very heartbeat of Govardhan Hill. Kusham Sarovara is the very heartbeat of Govardhan Hill. I should also mention here that sometimes Krishna wants to wear a long braid himself. What? Yes. Sometimes Krishna wants to wear a long braid himself. He has long hair, Keshava. And this is beautifully described in the Vaishnava poet Surdas' poem called Maya Meri Kaburi Bhadhegi Choti. That's the name of the poem. It's about baby Krishna crying and asking his mother as follows. Krishna says, Maya, oh Maya, mother, when will my hair become longer? You tell me to eat butter and yogurt, but even after eating a lot of it, my hair is the same as before. But look at the hair of my brother Balaram. It's thick and dark like a huge snake. After drinking unboiled milk as a medicine, still my hair is not growing, Maya. Surdas concludes, I am ready to lose everything for the sweet words of Krishna and Balaram. Well, therein we hear Krishna wants long hair or long braid as well. And Surdas, he concludes, I am ready to lose everything for the sweet words of Krishna and Balaram. And so are we. So I would like to conclude with a short verse from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Gita Mala. It's in part 2 and it's text number 4. It's short, but it's very sweet. Eloquence is truth spoken concisely. Herein, Krishna is compared to the jasmine decorating the braids of Sri Radha and the gopis. He writes, Tumi Krishna Harin Mani, Yuva Vrinda Siromani, Radhika Tamara Panishwari, Bhajan Ghana Shira Shobha, Damila Malika Bhava, Tumi Radha Krishna Paryankari. O Lord Krishna, you are the sapphire in the crown of all youths. Radha is the queen of your life. O Shri Radha, you are the jasmine crown decorating the braids of Braja's girls. And you are always eager to please Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Wow, thank you so much, Prabhus. Well, as always, we'll do our best to be back next Friday with something else as stimulation for developing ecstatic love for the divine couple. I hope this lecture today inspired you in that way. Srimati Radharani's braid. I never thought I could speak for 40 minutes about her braid, but such is the treasure house of knowledge that we have in Srila Prabhupada's books and the books of our acharyas. So, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yagya ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Jai Jai Sri Sri Radhe Sham. Glories to Prabhupada. Haribol. Thank you.